This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Yes, let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing. On this episode, we're going into the marketplace of podcasting to find the perfect item and bring it home for the holidays. Granted, when you hear this, it'll be January 2nd for most of you, but in the meantime, we're talking shopping today on the 290th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. And with that, my name is Chris.
And I'm Phil.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
And I'm Doc Palindrome.
That's right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Doc Jesse Edmund Palindrome is here with us tonight to sit in and help us talk about shopping and other things. Well, I guess with that, Doc, what is going on?
Survived Christmas.
Well, that's good.
Mostly looking forward to today during Christmas, so that was fun. Been playing games. Excited for new stuff in the new year. I'm going to go ahead and plug my my improv troupe, Nuts and Bolts.
Absolutely.
We have a big show in February at a big comedy club, and if we fill it, we might be a regular there. So
sweet.
If you're in Rochester, it's the weekend of Valentine's Day. So if you're with somebody that you don't like too much, bring them to our show.
Well, now wait, which end of Valentine's Day is it? Because Valentine's Day is like on a Tuesday or something.
Yeah, it's the weekend after.
No.
Yeah.
That is the weekend That's the weekend I will be in Denver.
Well, hopefully we'll have a lot more shows.
Oh, good.
So we've got that going on. I do a bunch of podcasts myself. I do Exalista, or I produce Exalista. And NAB Comedy Podcast is my improv troupe. And we have a wrestling podcast called Red Trunker Radio. And that will be relaunching in January. So it's really, I spent a lot of time getting ready for 2018 to happen. So
nice.
Yeah. And I play games.
The chat room saying that Doc's a bit louder than the rest
Doc
of us.
is a bit louder than the rest
I'm sorry.
of us. That's
I
okay.
resonate.
No, it's okay. It's also a level thing.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Cool.
You should try that. Doc projects more than I expected.
I do project. Sorry.
No, just keep talking normally.
Comes from the diaphragm. I'm playing. What am I playing right now? I have my GURPS X-Crawl game.
That's awesome.
I love GURPS, and it's been so long since I played it, and I love running it. And it's a crazy game because it's the first game I've ever run that I don't have a big, massive overarching plot. Like, oh, here's the evil thing. No, it's just people enjoying fame and stuff. And then I'm playing in a Starfinder campaign, which I'm enjoying a lot. So.
Oh yeah, how is that?
It's way better than Pathfinder. It's, Pathfinder is a strategy game. It's not a. Whereas Starfinder is more a story-based game.
Is it still mostly the same mechanics, or do they pare it down? Or?
A lot of the same, but they stripped it down a lot, and they removed some of the clutter from it. If you want a feat that gives you a bonus to 2 skills, there's a feat that's essentially called bonus to 2 skills. Pick 2 skills and figure out how they work together, and that's your feat.
No, that's better than like 100 different combinations, and then being pissed they don't have the combo you wanted anyway.
1 attack per round, no matter what level you are, unless you take a -4, and then you get 2.
All right, well that's legit.
Yeah, so it's not like tons of math at higher levels theoretically,
and it's probably speedier combats.
It's quite a bit speedier. So
I bet there's psionics that have magic type stuff in it, aren't there?
There's both psionics and magic actually. I'm playing a Solarian, which is like a Jedi Cyber Knight Paladin type, and it's super awesome. And in this particular campaign, there's giant dragon people, and that's what I'm playing. And I named him based off my favorite superhero, so his name is Theta Beam Jack.
Theta Beam Jack, I love it.
So, and if anybody gets the reference, good for you.
Of course.
I
Beta Ray Bill for those of you.
Of course. I was going to be annoyed at space magic, but since Voltron, I'm legit cool.
All
with
aboard
space
with
magic
space
now.
magic.
Yeah.
Come on, man. The Force is space magic.
Yeah, but the Force is more like psionics.
The Force is space magic.
I mean, yes, but
psionics
is pretty much like magic anyway. So I don't know. To me, there's a difference between those. But since the Voltron series, I'm totally down with space magic.
I was we were talking to a loyal Santa a few days ago, And I was like, thank God for Voltron, because now there's another space opera that I can point at that isn't Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh, I love. I'm so pleased I finished Voltron.
Is that it?
That pretty much covers what I'm doing.
Then you can pass it to somebody else by saying what's going on.
And Phil, what's going on with you?
Well, I did all the holiday stuff. My parents are actually in town. I ditched my parents to come do the show. I was like, look, I'm like, I can hang out with you guys up to a point. I'm like, but I gotta do the show. Like, the show's the thing. So having them in town is fine, but I don't get a lot of gaming done, obviously, because they're here. So I did first of all get them started on Stranger Things.
Nice.
So I made them start watching Stranger Things because I was like, well, if we're gonna sit around and watch TV, I don't want to watch romantic comedies, so we're watching Stranger Things, and they were totally into it, right? So I got them 4 episodes in, and I was like, good, you guys can finish this when you get home. And actually, it was fun to actually go back and watch the first 4 episodes again. Mm-hmm. So it was nice. I may go back and finish watching the last 4 of season 1 myself anyway. So I did that. I played a metric ton of Out There. Now, I sucked at this game for so long, and then I finally was like, fine, I'm turning it to easy. Like, I can't play this game on normal. I'm getting my ass kicked. I probably could now, but I put it on easy, and I started playing it. For people who don't know, Out There is a sci-fi roguelike where you are piloting the ship through space and trying to get to trying to get back to Earth. And you have to manage all your resources, fuel, oxygen levels, and the hull. And then you have technologies you can get that make you go faster and better. And there's all sorts of random shit that happens to you. And then you can like get other ships and stuff like that. So I did like a little reading because I was like, man, I suck at this game. Like, what is wrong with me? So I did like a little reading online. And then I like got to playing again, and I got like much better at it. And like, I made it out, I think about the same number of days. Like I was in the 400s with like the same, like, because Chris's length is like 4 something, right?
It was like, I can't remember what my, I played a game on normal, and I was like fighting aliens and far.
I was running away from aliens, but yes, there's the aliens show up at one point, and yeah, it's a fun game because it's a roguelike.
So it's so much easier on easy. I flipped it on easy the other day to play it.
Yeah.
I'm like 250 days in.
You got to learn the fundamentals though. That's what easy is kind enough to you to teach you the fundamentals. Like you have to know how to gather up resources and how to stockpile and manage all that stuff.
And as they pointed out, we're now talking about Chris's length. Good job, Bob. Way to point that out.
Anyway, so anyway, I played a bunch of that and it was like super satisfying. And did the Christmas thing, and I got a couple cool things for Christmas. I got the Tales from the Loop art book,
nice,
which is good because I'm running Tales, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to have this book. And I got a book that Ken Hite recommended I should read called The Water Knife.
Yeah,
which is all about. So far, I didn't actually read the jacket because if Ken Hite tells you to go read a book, you should just go read a book and not question him.
Probably should.
But it opens up with this guy whose job is to, in the future, help seize water rights along the Colorado River.
Oh, it must be a Hydra Hacker book.
Well, that's what because he said to me when he saw Hydra Hackers, he's like, "Have you read The Water Knife?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "You need to." And I'm like, "Yes, Ken." Like. One does not. I didn't say why. I just assumed Ken said, "Go read The Water Knife."
Yes, sir, Mr. Hite, sir.
Yeah, one does what Mr. Hite says. So anyway, I started reading that. It's actually really good. And I ate way too much. My mother came into town, which means I actually cooked for my mom, which was fun. And then she cooked as well, and so way too much eating. And then I took my dad to go see Star Wars today. So I took my dad and I took my son. So. It was Dante's first time and my third. But that movie only gets better. Like every time I watch it, I just love that movie like a little bit more.
Nice.
So that's pretty much me. What about you, Bob? What's going on?
Well,
I'm going to eat this cookie cat. Thank you, Senda.
Eat the cookie cat,
by the way. The cookie cats are delicious. And now I'm eating gingerbread Star Wars cookies.
Senda sent us cookies.
Yes.
Thank you, Senda. Merry Christmas, Senda.
I'm eating a cookie
Merry
cat.
Christmas, everybody out there.
Yay. Yeah, my Christmas was super, super mellow. My family decided that this year we weren't going to do any kind of gift exchange or anything like that because, everybody's like, we don't really have the money for that. So we just got together on Christmas Eve and we snacked and hung out and watched football together. We had pigs in a blanket, the little Smokies wrapped in the in the dough, and Totino's pizza rolls. That was my Christmas Eve, hanging out with my parents and my sister. And then got together again the following night on Monday on Christmas Day for more football and dinner. And we had a nice dinner and watched football, and we're disappointed that Houston couldn't put up a better fight. But yeah, what are you going to do? And then I went home and I watched some more football, and just been kind of chilling. I am now on the night shift again, so I spent part of the weekend shifting my schedule so that I could sleep during the day and be up all night. And so, of course, last night while I was on shift, or early this morning, I should say, I binged the entire season 2 of Trollhunters, and now I'm sad that it's over. And I'm kind of...
There's a third season.
There's a third?
It already got greenlit.
Yeah, but it's not going to have...
No, it won't.
Anton Yelchin.
Correct, because he's dead.
Yeah.
But there's a third season, I heard.
It'd be more interesting if we did.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see where they go then, and what they do with a replacement voice and whatnot. And I'm assuming they're not going to get rid of Jim because Jim's a pivotal character. So.
Absolutely. They'll just change his voice.
I did also watch Bright,
Me too.
the Netflix movie with Will Smith, which is essentially a Shadowrun movie with
It's a Shadowrun
Ish.
world
Yeah.
that is not a Shadowrun story.
Yes, it's not about running on corpse and
Correct.
stuff, but it's got orcs and it's got they mentioned dwarves, it's got elves. It was interesting.
It's got magic.
It's got magic. It was not a great movie, but it was entertaining. And if they decided to do more, I would watch it.
Yeah. Angela's got the right of it in the chat room. It is Shadowrun without the cyberpunk.
Yes,
That's exactly what
There
it
you
is.
go.
Is it worth my 2 hours?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's worth
Definitely.
the 2 hours. Yeah.
it's Urban Arcana. That's exactly what it is.
It's
There you go.
From
100%
D20 Modern.
Urban
That's
Arcana.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and geez, that's I'm going through Minecraft withdrawal because I'm still waiting for the RMA from my buddy to get the new
My God,
motherboard
what's
for his machine.
What's the SLA on that server?
Yeah, we don't have SLAs. We need to work on that. But yeah, so the holidays, and now I'm doing my thing with the podcast and gathering spoons, and because that's what part of this is, spoon gathering. So, Chris, what about you, man?
We had like a solid therapy session for like an hour before the show. It was really good.
Solid therapy.
I got to vent a lot of emotions, which is really, really necessary for me.
That was like kind of a surprise for Doc. Like,
Yeah.
Bob
Poor
and I are
Doc.
kind of used to it, but
It wasn't as much of a surprise as you might.
But for those people who generally worry about me and my mental health and my physical health, like I am, I'm under 250 for the first time in a very long time, weight-wise.
yes.
I know we usually talk about that in the social media depository, so I'm pretty happy about that. And I am going to be seeking some. Starting Friday, I'll be seeing somebody to talk to about problems.
Yeah.
So I'll be joining all the other people in therapy, apparently.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
Yep.
Do you have you picked a therapy buddy yet?
No, I haven't had a therapy buddy
Okay.
yet.
Much like a jump buddy, like when you go out of a plane, therapy buddy is the person that you call after you've had your therapy session and you almost made a breakthrough, or sometimes you've made a breakthrough in therapy and you need to talk it out with somebody. Sometimes you're on the edge of making a breakthrough and you make it about 30 minutes after, and you're like in the car going, what the hell is going?
Yeah, I don't know who to do that for because it's 9 o'clock. My sessions are at 9 a.m., so I'll be done at like 10:30.
You can still text.
I could text, but it's not the same as
It's
talking.
the start.
Okay.
You check in.
It's communication with another person
Well,
about your.
If anybody out there who knows me very well that is listening to the show, I mean, some of you are closer to me than others. Like, let me know. It'll probably be Phil, but if Phil's not available because he's in a meeting or something,
It is important to
I
have
could use some people.
I could almost always.
Oh, good.
Do that, yeah.
Cool. I mean, you heard enough today, Doc.
Yeah.
You're like in the inner circle, like you and Rob Abrazado and Eric Bonds. There's some people like I've said on the show before, like if you want to know what's up with me, just find me and talk to me, and I will probably just tell you because I'm pretty open about how I feel about things.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I found that having a therapy buddy was a really big help because sometimes you're just like you leave therapy and you're like, okay, that was good solid session or whatever, and then you get in the car and you're like,
Logical.
like you just come like apart, and that's when your therapy buddy like jumps in and like kind of holds you together, or at least gets you to pull the car off the road.
I see there's Rob Abrazado in the chat room saying he'll be my therapy buddy too.
Oh, there you go.
So I got people now. I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Good to
happy
have
about
people.
this. I do have a lot of people. I have a lot of good friends. Thank you all. Anyways, I'm eating these gingerbread cookies, which are fucking delicious.
The gingerbread ones, I haven't
Lord.
torn into those yet.
Man, I mean, I like the flavor of ginger and gingerbread cookies. Like not all the time, but every once in a while, these are really good.
Send us a very good baker.
We had a work night last week Thursday.
Oh, we did.
Yeah,
That was fun.
We invented a game that's like a PBTA Star Trek Paranoia style game. but-
Oh, the red shirt game.
Red shirt game. Yeah,
That accidentally started in the chat room for life.
yeah. I feel like sometime this week I will have a working alpha put together that's laid out that we can give away to the patrons to start.
Oh, that'll be
messing
fun.
around with.
Yeah,
That
that
would be
game's
cool.
essentially for people who weren't in the chat room. The idea is heavily inspired by Scalzi's book
Red Shirts.
Red Shirts, which is amazing. And the idea is that you are the red shirts on some sort of Star Trek like ship, and you are trying not to die. And that the worst thing that can happen to you is that that you get taken away on an away mission. But the problem is, you also, in order to survive on the ship and actually advance anywhere in your career, you actually need to
Get clout.
You need to have some clout with the senior staff.
Yep.
And the senior staff essentially are like terrible gods. Like they're super powerful and you need their favor, but if you get too close or tangled with them, you'll likely get pulled in on a mission and get killed.
Yep.
And so there's this balancing act of trying to stay in their good graces, but not too good of their graces, but also not too bad. If you stay too far below the radar and you have no clout, then you get sent on like the worst missions because no one has a stake in keeping you alive, right? Like the senior staff's
You're
like
super expendable.
right. The senior staff's like, it doesn't matter about that guy. But if you're like a mid-ranked guy in their department, then they're like, no, you can't have Jonesy. Like Jonesy's like heading up stellar cartography. Like,
That's right.
Is the goal then for a player character to like hit that point where you get the "and" credit in the opening credits?
Yes.
And you're like
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
a player character anymore.
The idea is
It's
to
to become
ultimately
Charlie O'Brien.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. The ultimate who?
O'Brien.
I thought you said Charlie.
I thought his first name was Charlie.
Miles.
Miles. Sorry.
Sorry,
Something-
my Star Trek
my-
nerd.
Right.
My Star Trek nerd was like, "Wait,
My
something's
bad.
wrong." He
It was rattling around my
said
skull,
the
and
wrong name.
it just couldn't get. It didn't get to my lips fast enough.
He
to
said it
get-
mostly right. He said O'Brien. Correct. O'Brien would, and exactly because what happens is that with enough advancements, you unlock the promotion move. I think if you're still going this way, the trick is though you have to have enough clout to get promoted.
Yeah.
But the problem is, in order to have enough clout, you start running the risk of getting like put on a special mission.
I love this game so much already.
Yep.
Man.
What did we?
Sorry, the chat room is killing me.
What did we say? The actual away mission is just a move.
Yeah, it's just a move.
Yeah,
It's called
you don't actually
Survive.
go on a mission.
Yeah, there's like moves called like bootlicking.
Bureaucracy.
There's a bureaucracy move. I'm pretty sure.
When you use we should change it from bureaucracies. It should be something like rules and regulations.
Yeah. There's like spout some techno babble. Is
Yeah.
one of the moves, or at least it was. I mean, I have to go look at them again.
Right, that's bullshit. Spout some
yeah,
techno babble.
Yeah, pretty much.
Red tape.
Yeah, that's
Oh, the
rules
name
and-
of the move is red tape. That's
yes,
right.
That's the rules and
bureaucracy
regulations
room.
one, right?
Yeah.
Like when you quote rules and regulations to either avoid or get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were noodling around with it while Tim was working on some layout for Whirlwind Millionaire.
Mm-hmm. That was fun. Other things. I saw The Greatest Showman, which is that movie with Zac Efron and Hugh
would like
Jackman.
this movie.
Is a musical. It's about P.T. Barnum's life. I think it's fantastic. I mean, I love the music from it, and some of the choreography that they do in the in this musical movie is fantastic. It's some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Where do you fall on Baz Luhrmann's
Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge?
I
Thank you.
love Moulin Rouge.
Okay, good. Okay.
How can you not love Moulin Rouge, man?
No, I'm fine. I love Moulin Rouge.
It's like this wonderful, awful tragedy, man.
yeah.
I
You
tried
kind of have
so
to be a
hard
fan
not to
of
like it.
musicals too. So I'm not a huge musical fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, those are not the first movie that
The-
I picked when I go.
The tango. The
Love
tango.
is a many splendored thing. Oh man,
the tango version of Roxanne in
Yeah.
Moulin Rouge is
Yeah.
just so good. Anyway, sorry, derailed you.
no, it's okay. I also saw Bright. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't great, but
I
it was,
gotta watch
it was
that.
enjoyable. I feel like if you're gonna run some modern fantasy where there's like orcs and elves and things like that in the world,
It's good. See,
Yeah.
you should watch it because it'll give you what you need.
Nice.
It'll give you a bunch of lingo and visuals and whatnot to run a game like that.
Oh, you know what Netflix series I did start to watch a little bit?
What's
of?
that?
I got a few episodes in on Mindhunter.
Yeah, it's kind of feels like it's up your alley.
It's totally up my alley, right?
It's a serial killer show, right? Like
yeah.
chasing down serial killers.
Yeah, by interviewing serial killers.
Interesting. I mean, I've watched most of Trollhunters, not all of it yet. Yeah, that's what I've been watching. And for Christmas, the coolest thing that I got, and I took some pictures of it and whatnot, is I have an X-wing drone. My mother found me an X-wing drone and bought it for me for Christmas.
It's a little drone, right? It's
right
like
up, it's right up there on
it's
the
like
shelf.
hand size.
Do you want to get it?
Yeah,
it's
go
about
ahead,
as
go
big as
grab
your
it.
hand.
We'll throw it on the camera for those people who want to see it. If you're listening to this in podcast land, you have to go to Twitch or YouTube to find this video. But then you can see it. But Doc is going to go grab
Hans,
it.
put the gun away. This is radio.
You know, they say these things are...
I watched.
Did you watch Die Hard?
Dante saw Die Hard for the first time.
Oh,
My
is he
son, who's
excited?
13, I finally let him watch Die Hard on Christmas Eve. He loved it, by the way.
You can just float that sucker in front of
So
the camera
good.
so people can see it if you want. Here, Doc's putting it in front of the camera. There it is. So those people in the chat room and whatnot who are not in podcast land, they can see it now. YouTube, MMP.
And the
Chris.
cockpit's the battery, right? That's
Yeah,
what the
correct.
cockpit's.
okay. So that's what's charging down there.
Yeah.
Yep. Which you could pull that out and put it in. So moving on, that was pretty much me. So that's it.
Yeah.
It's doing things.
It's lit
It's
up.
lit
It's
up
going
now.
live.
So, and it flies. I've crashed it a bunch of times, and it still works.
Well, that's good.
In fact,
That's usually step one with a drone, right?
Uh-huh.
Crash it.
Stay on target.
I'm so bad at flying it still. Like it's.
Oh my
it's
god!
Also
Can
a
we
narrow
make you?
space in
Can we
here.
make you a trench and make you fly through?
Maybe when I get good at it.
Have a few drinks, fly through
Oh,
the
God,
trench,
no, well-
stay on target.
Hopefully, I'll be awesome at that point in time. Anyways, we don't have any announcements today. There's nothing
nope.
to announce.
Oh, we missed one thing.
I'm sorry, we do.
What's it?
We both, Bob and I, immediately contradict you.
Sorry, that's fine.
What do you got,
Announce.
Bob?
Well, it's not really an announcement. We had poutine tonight.
We did have poutine.
We
tonight.
because Happy Boxing
Happy
Day
Boxing
to our
Day.
Canadian listeners and other countries that celebrate Boxing Day. I think there are a few more. Could be Australia. I think celebrates it as well, and we
You may
have a
be
number
right.
of Australian listeners.
But yeah. Yay, poutine.
So that was awesome. Poutine was great. Me and Bob had poutine with like everything on it.
It was called The Boss. It had beef, chicken, pork, bacon, sauteed onions, and then, of course, the cheese and the fries.
Oof.
And Palindrome, you had two different types of poutine.
Yeah, I had the bacon cheeseburger and the chicken bacon ranch, which has just on it what you would expect, and it tells you on the menu.
Bacon ranch.
By the way, it's coming back here at some point in the near future. So
Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I know you left it in a car, so we'll get that for you.
That's fun.
Yep.
And I didn't eat both of those. I got some of that for my wife. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, he was just being a good husband.
I
That's
do
all.
okay.
All right. Well, anything else, Phil?
No, I just wanted to make sure that we said Happy Boxing Day because while we are in the States and that's not a that's not a thing, Boxing Day is celebrated in other places in most of the Commonwealth nations. So Happy Boxing Day.
I will say one more thing before we go to the garage. We're going to the garage, right? For this thing? Or is it the
We're going
workshop?
to the workshop.
Oh, okay. Because I'm not looking at the notes right now.
Yeah, we're going to workshop.
All right. Before we go there, go
of course.
download Love and Justice. It'll make Senda very happy.
Love and Justice.
And justice.
Is that Love?
No. It
and
needs
Justice?
no. It needs like some.
We need
real
like a
anime.
real song.
Yeah,
Hey, Senda, Emily, can you two folks get on that? Like, get us a Love and Justice song.
that
Like,
would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I can even probably find some ways to put some music to it. So, all right. Well, with that, let's go to the workshop.
Workshop, play better games, damn it. Workshop, don't make your players cry. Workshop, don't suck, be a better GM. Workshop.
Yes, we are totally in the workshop.
That's as wonderful as I thought it would be.
It's better live. It really
so much
is.
better live. Watching Phil with the hand motions is my favorite.
Luckily, I had a drink nearby so that the next moment wouldn't be as awkward.
So, in honor of Boxing Day and all the other holidays that fall into this time frame, we wanted to talk about shopping. At first, when we started talking about this topic, we laughed because what the hell could we write or talk or anything about shopping that would be worth listening to? So we hashed over some ideas over dinner at Dinosaur Barbecue when me and Phil went on our lovely date.
That was a wonderful date.
It was
yeah.
a wonderful date. And, well, you get this episode. So, Phil, what do you got about buying stuff?
Yeah, so shopping, right? The action or activity of purchasing goods from a store, right? That's pretty simple, kind of almost beneath my own definition, but we have a shtick we will adhere to on this show. And damn it, I will define it no matter how simple it is.
All right. So the action or activity of spending currency to acquire goods or services from stores.
Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, just to
Sure,
take it up a
why
notch,
not?
right?
Yep.
Like instead of just being super simple, like we'll
Yes,
just
we could fancy the
we'll dress up
definition.
that pig, as they say.
Yes, put some lipstick on that pig. Anyway, depending on your game, where you shop and what you shop for is going to vary. And so we got, like this depends, like on different games, it's just going to have different looks to it. So give me a couple.
All right. Fantasy. The Armory in town.
Sure, that's a place where you might go in a fantasy game.
Sci-fi. Purchasing ship upgrades while in space dock.
Sure, right? Like if you're like a Firefly, Star Frontiers traveler kind of thing.
What about modern?
You might need to pick up some arms from like a dealer in Paris. Right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Get them from your favorite arms dealer.
Yeah, especially in an underground CD bar.
Yeah. Or you could get them out by the river. Ronin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't get that reference at all.
Please tell me Please tell me you've never seen
I
Ronin.
don't think I've ever seen Ronin.
Movie night.
Well,
Shit. Well,
Well, now I know. Now I know what we're doing.
'cause we're doing New Year's Eve. Yeah, we're gonna play a game.
Oh
Apparently
man,
we're
you've
watching
never
Ronin.
seen Ronin?
Ronan is so good. I'm not
With
even
De
going to do the
Niro?
one quote because
I don't think I've seen Heat, but I don't think I've ever seen Ronin.
Ronan is so good.
Oh, I have that
So
on.
good.
Okay. Oof.
Best car chase in any movie.
Really? Better
it's-
than the Italian Job?
100%.
It's one of the best.
I mean,
car
when
chases.
you talk best car chases of all time,
French Connection.
French Connection is usually near the
I've
top
never
of the
seen
list.
that car chase.
But this is right up there.
Yeah, this ranks better than I think every Bourne car chase, and the Bourne car chases are nothing to slouch at.
No, they're not. I'm not super fan of the most recent one. The what Born?
Bourne 4,
Yeah, but Born 1 had a great
Bourne 1 through 3.
car
Those
chase
are
in it.
Yeah.
Bourne 1 through 3 solid. Bourne 4. Okay, anyway, back on track. Sorry, put us back on track. So besides there being different types of things you can buy, there are different places you can buy stuff. There is different things we can buy depending on our genre, right?
Something like small gear, ropes, lanterns, hammers, and spikes.
Sure.
There are also weapons like a sniper for a modern game, or a battle axe for a fantasy game, or a modern game, or a monster hunting game, or whatever kind of game, or daggers. Like knives and daggers always work pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, sure. If your game has it, or your setting has it, magical items, right? So we can be buying healing potions, a wand of fireballs, a scroll.
Especially if you're Eberron.
Yeah, absolutely. If Eberron, just like go to the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to like go
Red Bull healing potion.
Red Bull healing potion.
It should
gives
be
you-
it should
Oh,
be
wow.
haste plus healing.
Well, no, Red Bull gives you wings to fly.
Oh,
right?
in Sharn,
It
that would be
actually-
really important.
It actually gives you wings.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
Oh,
I love it.
Mission gear, so like a drone, a computer virus, miniature video cameras, things like that.
Uh-huh.
Also, there's trade goods out there that you could purchase to use to trade for, I suppose.
Yeah, well, if you're
Spices.
playing a game with economics.
Spices, medical supplies, machine parts.
Sure. Then there's like large scale purchases, right? Like, I mean, everything we named are like the kinds of things that like players might buy or frequently buy, but there's large scale purchases like vehicles, upgrades for a starship, right? A base of operations. Like those are like your capital expenditures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So several things then play a factor in what can be shopped for in a game, and the most one of my favorites and probably the most important one to me is genre, right? So like, is this a fantasy setting? What kind? High, low? Like that's the Eberron question. Are we doing the Eberron thing or are we doing the Conan thing?
Yeah, absolutely, right?
Because Conan thing, you ain't buying magic really.
Right.
And if you are buying magic, it's from
It ain't working.
No, or it's from somebody who's gonna bind your soul to something.
Right.
Then we also ask, is it sci-fi or sci-fantasy? Like things like that.
Because that's different, right? I mean, like buying stuff in Numenera is very different than buying stuff in Traveler.
Yeah, because in Traveler, you kind of know what it is and how it works. In Numenera, it might have a function, but it's a piece of Numenera. It could do something else completely different.
Yeah, it's like buying things from The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. This is a really good reference. Like, what do they call it? Dinglehopper? It's what is a fork? It's a fork.
Things
But it's
for twirling
it's
your
a
hair.
Dinglehopper. Like everything everything had a primary purpose, but now it just has a secondary,
Right.
different use. So like that's actually how Numenera kind of works in a lot of ways.
To that, setting actually is also going to play a part of this, right? Like, our buying a magic item in Greyhawk is going to be a lot different than our buying a magic item in Sharn.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like that is a
Yeah, that's very much a setting, right? If we're playing a sci-fi game, whether we're on a core world or a frontier world, also has an effect on what we're actually going to buy.
So
Right.
the market should actually change between those different spaces.
We're going to talk about that.
And then the game is also really important. Like, are there detailed lists for items? Is the list more abstract or less abstract? Are we looking at like spending money very, very specifically on things, or are we looking at being like, I got my adventuring kit?
Yeah. I mean, do you like, I mean, I remember as a kid, I would sit down with my, like 50 gold pieces with like the 3 pages of items and like the, player's handbook. And I'd be buying like, all right, well, how much silver do I want to spend on, rope, and how much, like, do I want 50 feet of rope, 20 feet of rope, all of that stuff, as compared to Dungeon World, where Dungeon World is like, you bought adventuring gear.
That's right.
Check.
Which I approve of that version, for me personally.
Right.
I don't like the nitty-gritty buying of things. But we'll talk about that later.
We're going to talk about that, right? Because
Yeah.
some people do.
Some people do. So what's next, man?
So, in order to understand shopping, we kind of have to understand a bit about gear, right? Like, what is gear actually doing for us in a game? Because in order to acquire it, there has to be a need for like what you have to be a need for it in the game.
It's true.
So, let's talk about some of the different ways that gear can be used, and these are not individual, right? These can be gear can fill one of these types, or it can be multiple types.
It's true.
So the first one I'll name is mechanical advancement, right? So having a piece of gear may give us a mechanical bonus in the game. So this may be something like an extra die. It might be a positive modifier to my roll. So I might have like a pair of quality lockpicks that I purchased. And depending on the game, that might give me like an extra die when I make my lockpick check, or it could give me like a +4 to my lockpick check, right?
Or
So,
advantage.
yeah, or advantage if it's exactly. And so in that case, the item has a mechanical effect in the game. All right.
So, like, another one is narrative positioning. In some games, having a piece of gear means that you have narrative positioning in order to do something in the game. For instance, the lock picks. Without them, you can't actually pick a lock.
Yeah, and in some games, that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
Oh, keep going.
That thing may or may not require a roll. Like that's what you were just saying,
Yeah.
actually. For instance, having a 10-foot pull, that'll let you spring a trap without being too close. Like, that's how a lot of old OSR games got played.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's why equipment's like kind of important in an
it
OSR
was,
game.
but money was also a more limited factor in those games, too, in a lot of ways.
Well, there's an interesting thing in OSR games, right? Because one, money's a little more limited. Two, the goal of original D&D was to acquire treasure, but you also had to spend said treasure. You had to spend money in order to make money, right? Like, you actually had to fund a dungeon outing.
You did?
Like sometimes people brought pack animals,
Hirelings.
extra equipment, because if you didn't say you had a 10-foot pole, then you had to have a hireling go trip the trap.
That's right. And as you advanced in levels and whatnot, eventually it was assumed that you would buy a keep, and then you had to spend to upkeep that keep.
Yeah. Well, we'll get that's
Yeah.
that's that large expenditure, right? Yeah.
But let's move back to narrative positioning for a second.
Yeah.
If you had a rope, that means you could tie somebody up. If you didn't have a rope, then what were you going to do?
Yeah. Then you can't tie them up. That's less fun.
Tell me about character development now.
Yeah. So the other thing that gear can sometimes do is it can actually.
By the way, I saw what you did there.
Did you?
I caught it.
That's always good. We've talked about this, right? Like when we segue or we have these like, little catchy things that we.
You caught his little shtick there, right, Doc? Like,
Yeah.
him talking about, tying people up being fun. Like, I'm with you. Tying people up.
I know you were with
Yeah.
me. I also am the one who color codes the show notes.
I know you are. I mean, I knew where you were going with that. I wasn't sure if I wanted to point it out and start a conversation about tying people up, or if I should just gloss over it.
I believe there's an after show topic about
roping games and how you can use it. Yeah, that's right. Let's move on now.
I'm on it. All right,
tell me
we're not
about
doing that episode tonight.
Tell me about character development.
So sometimes a character wants an item as part of their like story arc for their character, right? Like, so a pilot might want to purchase like a new ship,
Okay.
or a high level fighter might want to build a keep, right? Like they may have gotten to the point of in their personal story arc of, okay, yeah, I'm like 15th level, and wandering dungeons isn't quite doing it for me. I want to take over this, this place. Or, like a samurai might want to commission a signature weapon.
Or a Jedi might want to build their lightsaber.
Or a superhero might want a new costume.
Yeah.
Now look at all that
Or a
stuff.
base of operations. Superheroes. I mean, if
Or
you're
a
like
vehicle.
Yeah,
You
like
know
if you're
what?
a Mr.
I need to have a Spider-Mobile.
Yeah.
Like if you're a Mr. Fantastic, like money, although we gloss over that in superhero games, but Mr. Fantastic needs boatloads of money.
I've been on the super team that took the bus.
Oh, I've been on that. I think we Ubered once in masks.
You did.
Yep.
You absolutely did. That was hilarious. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, we had to Uber to get to a place, and then we were like, we really got to come up with transportation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. So those things aren't necessarily mechanical bonuses or narrative positioning, but they're really things that like complete a story arc. So they're still important to a character. Now, again, like we said, it can be one or multiple things, right? So obviously, if a pilot buys a new ship, there's a bunch of mechanical advantages that come with that as well. But if it also completes their story, like completes a part of their story arc, it has that character advancement purpose.
Sure, I'm with you.
Okay. So with those three things in mind, there's a lot of incentive to get gear,
Yes, there is.
right? Like players like to get gear. But what's the problem then?
Well, shopping, there's a couple of problems.
Yeah, there's
The,
going to
the first one we're going to talk about is that shopping is an asymmetric situation. Like,
Yes.
There's not really much for the game masters to do, and we'll talk about a bunch of this stuff, and we'll discuss it all later. But we're just going to go through these things now. We'll have a discussion about most of the things that we're going to talk
Oh yeah,
about.
absolutely.
Because it's asymmetric, it's kind of boring in a lot of ways. It's character facing.
Yeah.
The player facing in a lot of ways. The GM doesn't get to do anything.
Right. And what we mean is players buy gear.
GMs don't buy gear. They don't have to, right? Like, they can give their NPCs whatever they want.
Which you think is like totally awesome.
But it's not, I mean, it's not that exciting. Like,
No.
as far as the shopping portion of the game goes, it's not that exciting,
Right.
right? So because of that, you have things like Angela, which she said earlier in the chat room. Like, when it comes to shopping, I tell them to go frickin' do it away from the table and just do your thing and go shopping and then come back to the table and we'll play the game.
Which is fantastic because that is exactly the segue into,
Yeah.
into the next section.
So why is shopping boring?
Yeah, so shopping's boring, and GMs just like Angela said, most times GMs hand wave it, right? They're like, oh my god, I don't even want to talk about your shopping stuff. Like, go buy your gear in between sessions and come back, and maybe tell me what you bought, because a lot of GMs have this notion that shopping is boring, but shopping's not necessarily boring. It's that shopping suffers from a couple of problems that we as GMs don't often address. And so what we're going to do is, before we get to the halfway point
Which is then going to follow
with
the
our discussion,
which
we're
then will inject Doc and Bob into the chat more.
we're going to talk about, Chris and I are going to talk about what some of the problems are. And then when we get into the discussion session, we'll talk about, we'll come up with some ideas for how to deal with the problems.
Sure. Want me to go first?
Yeah. No, I don't actually. I want you to go first.
I said, do you want me to go first?
Oh, I thought you said, do you want to go first?
No,
was
I
like,
talk way too fast. I'm caffeinated, and I
and
spelled
you
whole
were a
bunch of
little
shit.
agitated.
I was agitated earlier, and now I'm just sort of like riding the fact that I don't have all that
Why
emotional
don't you take a nice deep
garbage.
cleansing breath? There we go.
Spotlight. So, in most cases, each character is shopping for themselves. On occasion, they're shopping as a group, larger scale purchases like starships or castles.
Sure.
Because of this, shopping during the game can be somewhat of a spotlight issue. The person who is shopping is in the spotlight while everyone else is just watching. And often, shopping is contagious, so if one person's like, I want to buy a thing, everyone else is like, I also want to spend my money and buy stuff.
Yeah, because at that point in the game, if somebody triggers the shopping move, so to speak, like everybody piles on as well.
Which, there needs to be a shopping move
Yeah.
in most games.
Yes. Well, that brings us to our next problem. There are no actual supporting mechanics other than currency.
Correct.
Right? So few games have rules for how to shop. Like, you just shop, right? The book has a list of things that cost money. You have money. And, that's it. Like, take your money, buy the stuff. But few games actually address, and I kind of want to think, and I've never read it, but I feel like Red Markets is a game where shopping isn't as simple as it sounds. But that's a problem.
It is a problem.
Because if there aren't mechanics for it, then what are you going to do with it?
Absolutely. You want me to do the next one?
Yeah, please.
All right. So shopping is about prepping, not about story. There's no plot advancement often,
Exactly.
unless you're trying to go buy a thing that you need for the plot.
Right.
But usually, it's not that.
I'm going to support your example, but and make the argument when we get to the discussion. I have a movie that addresses this problem beautifully. Okay. Keep
So,
going.
I mean, I said most of it right there, but like hand-waving shopping, as Angela talked about, which then she recorrected my statement earlier. It wasn't her declaration. It was every game master in the group's declaration.
Yeah, absolutely.
You hand-wave shopping so that you can get to the fucking monkey. Get to the fucking monkey. Okay.
Yeah, often that's what we do, right? Like you're getting ready to set up for a mission. It's like, oh, everybody just go buy your stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the last thing?
It can be slow. Shopping is much like shopping in real life. If you don't know exactly what you want, you can take forever shopping. And depending on the game, if a game has like multiple shopping lists, and I can think of one of my past favorite games, Corporation, was notorious for shopping lists, and even worse, they put in every supplement a few pages of gear. So not only were you like, oh, where is that item X? Is it in the core book? Is it in the Mind Unbound?
Hang on, let me look through 4 different books to find the thing that I want.
Right.
Yeah.
So that can slow you down. Another thing is analysis paralysis. So if you're doing like Chris says, if you're buying gear for prep, now you're like, well, do we want this one? Do we want this thing? Do we want that thing? And if it's a Palladium game, Palladium games were chocked full of equipment lists. Like you will seize up. Players will seize up, and this will now make shopping even longer, which is often the reason why GMs are like, please go do this like between sessions. Like go have your analysis paralysis at home, like away from the table kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So yeah. And even if you're not on spotlight, like maybe I'm just like, okay, look, Jesse and I are going to have a scene. Chris, go figure out what gear you want to buy. But you're like so caught up in it, you're not even paying attention.
Yeah.
Like you may have just missed all the dialogue that might have been either A, entertaining
or
and
important.
B, important, because you're like pouring through books like, I can't find the plasma inverter, like the specific plasma inverter I want, right? The 20 watt plasma inverter. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we've discussed some of these issues that make shopping problematic. Let's check in with the chat room, and when we come back, we will try to figure out how to make shopping even more exciting. But before that, we should probably do Misdirected Mark show blurb. So let's talk about, I like this show a lot, Panda's Talking Games.
I love that show.
I know, right? That's where you get Phil and Senda answering questions about RPGs from the perspective of one-shots and campaigns with some Panda silliness. And also, hopefully, not hopefully, but I hear that show will be shifting slightly in the future.
Oh, you got to not panic people until we talk about it on the show.
Oh, man, what? We talked about it like 4 times.
I know, because you keep bringing it up, and then I have to keep telling people, like, hey, it's okay.
going to be fine.
It'll be fine. It's just going to be less written, more just us talking.
Improvised, yeah. That's all.
Which means it's going to be wandering a little bit more.
I'm sorry, Sonny. You're going to have to edit harder.
Yes.
Or not. Just
or not, or less.
Yes, or less.
No, I think what happens is we just put a timer on the table, and when the timer goes off, I go, and with that, we've now reached the end of the show. And I just start the closing. Like,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now, if you were going to advertise with Misdirected Mark Productions, this is the time that you would hear your ad spot. Maybe earlier,
right
maybe
here.
Later, but probably right here.
Yeah, right in the middle of the meat of the episode.
Or at the beginning of the episode, probably.
Sure.
So you get our bespoken ad copy.
They're handcrafted and somewhat clumsily awkward on purpose.
Absolutely. And sometimes Bob even chimes in. Sometimes anybody else who's around will possibly chime in.
I would chime in.
See? He would chime in. Professional
There would be many
improvisers.
chimes.
I even get professional improvisers on the show every once in a while. So that's a thing. To do your ad copy. So there you go. That's where you would advertise with Misdirected Mark Productions. All right, let's get back to it. What's going on in the chat room?
Yeah.
I should say?
So aside from mentioning Porg Hub,
Is that the
For
new name?
reasons-
Is that the new name for Wikipedia? For Wikipedia?
Wikipedia, yeah.
Wikipedia.
Porg Hub.
Porg Hub.
Pork hub.
Love it.
So yeah, the thing with Angie's group and the shopping, they had a good reason for banning it because someone went on a 2-hour crusade to find the appropriate materials to make a costume for their familiar.
I saw that.
2 hours of game time, and the GM was just like, kind of going along with it, and they were like, "No, from now on, none."
And
We
you
don't do
know,
that.
as soon as that familiar had that costume on, it was like, yeah, I don't want it.
Yeah, familiars
Or they
are
get
awful
killed.
about wearing.
What? I mean, just go to a tailor shop and be like, make me a familiar costume, and they'll be
Yeah.
like, come back in a week, it'll be done.
But this person didn't do that, and the GM was kind of trying to be,
What exactly? What parts do you look for? Like, are you looking for tables for specific for specific fabrics?
Yes,
Like,
fabrics and accoutrement, like gems and so they could bedazzle it,
my
whatever.
God.
If you're a wizard and you can't make a costume for your familiar using your fancy magics,
what kind
Yeah.
of
Your
wizard?
familiar doesn't
what
deserve
kind of
a
wizard
Yeah.
are
what
you?
kind of wizard are you?
Can't polymorph a rock into a costume.
I mean,
Oh man,
I don't know.
yeah. So that was a thing.
You cast illusion on it so that it looks like it's wearing a costume.
There you go. Just use a glamour.
Yeah.
So Avi the Jackal had a question. So when do you want to include shopping scenes at the table?
Ooh. I think we're gonna.
I don't know
we're
if
gonna
you hit that
table.
or not.
We're gonna table Avi because that is actually what we're gonna start talking about. Is
Excellent.
How to make this stuff suck less.
There you go.
But I think a good place just to sort of slot where it's going to be in the future, because we don't actually have like as many notes
Yeah,
or
it's
something
okay.
like that. Plot advancement is one of the spaces that you want that, right?
I think you want it as plot advancement. I also think it has a lot to do with what your general pacing is for your game. Like, if you're aggressively pacing your game, like let's say you're playing 3 hours, you want to play a full adventure in 3 hours, there's probably not a lot of place in your game for too much shopping.
Correct.
But if you are playing something more like, hey, we just play this game weekly for 4 hours at a time and we get as far as we get every week, then yeah, then I think that the idea is that you want to, it's not so much where you put it, it's making it useful and interesting.
If you want to have a location that'll be a recurring location, that's a good time to have that scene.
It's an excellent time to reinforce location.
If you want to have NPCs that are coming up
Yes.
over and over again. But
Yep.
I mean, we'll talk about all that in a second.
No, it's good. I like that.
And PK Sullivan had a question that is item crafting the same as shopping? His gut says no, and I agree.
I think
There are some similarities.
Oh, the Venn diagrams I think brush up against
Yes.
each other.
So-
because feature selection becomes like shopping.
Well, here's the question: does the item crafting have mechanics that go along with it?
Well, yeah, in that case, it would be different than shopping, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe all the things I put in it raises the DC to create it or something. But I could totally see, in fact, I know this, from young Phil playing Star Frontiers Nighthawks edition, when you could build your own starships. Like, that's one of those things where you will it's totally like shopping. Because you're sitting there like
Choosing
I want to
features.
put
and-
these thrusters in and the shield and
Yeah, it's like Lego blocks, right?
I mean, if anybody's played with third edition GURPS, the vehicles rules.
GURPS vehicles.
Oh,
Yeah.
They're like a bunch of lists that you pick from.
I feel like I
points
could
and whatnot.
engineer a car now because I
there you
built
go.
at least one in that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it because Magic item creation in D&D third edition was like a process.
Yeah.
You
Oh
had to
yeah, it was
spend-
definitely a process.
You expend time and experience points and gold.
The thing with item creation in D&D, and the thing with item creation in general, item creation is almost always a downtime activity. Like, you don't item create in the middle of a dungeon. Unless you are really hard up for a solution for
Or
something.
you're an artificer and that's what you do.
Yeah, but then
that's your
but then you do that quickly.
Yeah, and there's mechanics that support it then.
I'm going to mention a game to Jesse that the most I spent downtime spending on was Roadhogs.
Oh yeah,
The TMNT
100%.
the TMNT Mad Max source book. So you were mutant animals with post-apocalyptic war cars.
Oh my god.
The last of the V8 interceptors.
Oh
That's
my god,
ridiculous.
it was and it's Palladian, so there was no shortage of tables of shit you could buy.
Yeah.
Engines and armor and weapons and oh my god, yes.
And if you worked it just right, you could end up with like 3 vehicles, and your game master would be super mad at you. Then kill your character.
Oh my God, Roadhogs was so good.
Oh man, Bob, is there anything else?
I think we're good to move on to the next thing.
All right. Well, we've framed out this problem. Shopping's an issue, but now it's time to talk about working up some ideas of how to make this activity more fun. So we're going to do that by tackling the issues we mentioned above, plus anything else that comes to mind. So Phil, what's the first one?
Yeah, let's start with Spotlight, right? Like, Spotlight is the thing. Like, when somebody goes shopping, it can draw attention. Like, it can put the spotlight on a character. So how do we make that spotlight then effective and useful? Like, let's just, what's some ideas?
Well, if we're spotlighting a character,
Sure.
then that shopping trip. So here's the thing that I like to do in games, if it's possible. Like, I always like to remind the characters that they're not just fighter or whatever their role is in the story, that they have lives, and that's a good place to bring their lives into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh look, you're shopping and your brother just walked in because your mom needs something. Like, it's just a moment that you can take a different beat, but that's not really part of the shopping thing. But that's a thing to add to the spotlight of what's going on in the story, right? That's where I'm at with that. What about you?
I think if you have a willing enough group too, I think you can also make it a part of the experience for other players and say, okay, who wants to be the shopkeep?
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And play that, and that adds to some fun. I mean, that's something that I've always kind of toyed with, and then in listening to all of campaign, I've kind of been like, oh no, I think I need to do that more often.
Well, now we're going to send off into Capsule because you mentioned campaign.
Another thing is, if you're going to role play out the shopping scene, it's a good place to give the flavor and themes of the city or the campaign or wherever you're shopping at. Like, anytime you guys went shopping in the Airy Peaks, it was very clear that this was a frontier space, and the shopkeep did not ever have everything that you guys wanted the shopkeep to have.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was scarcity there, and it was also very apparent that he was in a goblin cave with like boxes and crates and things hanging on rope on the walls.
Going off of what Doc said, even if you don't have players pick up the actual NPCs, it's a perfect time to source the table and be like, okay, what's weird about this shop?
Oh yeah,
like, tell me the weird. Like, you guys go into this armory. What's the weird thing about this armory?
So that's about spotlighting not just the player right there, but letting people do the group creation thing.
Yeah, because then I can play off that, right? I can play off that weird quirk about the shop, about the armor or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a spotlight. I've always found in general is a good time to play with player expectations a little bit. If like, oh, hey, you're Chris. Hey, you hang out with that Phil guy. Suddenly Phil is like, well, I'm not in this scene, but I'm really interested in it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what are they going to say about me?
Yeah.
Shopping's also, I think, a good time to actually have PC to PC scene. Like, because the actual activity of shopping isn't really that cumbersome, like, I'll take that sword. Like, it's a good time to, like, just all of a sudden, like, 2 characters are talking to each other. Like, hey, I'm going to town to pick up this sword. And, while you're waiting for the armorer to, sharpen it before he brings it to you, like, perfect time to drop in a character-on-character scene.
Sorry, I read a thing in the chat room that made me giggle. It was my one trolling statement: every shopkeeper may just be a monster.
Can I tell you when I once did that?
No, you can't. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, you can tell me, but I want to hear. But I've never heard the story
So
before.
I wrote this. So I when I was playing D&D 3.0, I wanted to do like a real solid exploration adventure. So I had this lost wizard school that was like out in the mountains, and the players I actually did like wilderness movement to get to it or whatever. But just before they get to the school, which was like up in the mountains, like at the foothill of the mountains, there was one last place to shop and rest. And it was this inn run by this woman. And she sold items like, in case you needed adventuring gear. But she would also offer like anything you got from the wizardry school, she would buy off you if you were, so inclined. And, she was like, bring back whatever you find. And, I can even do identify, things like that. Now, unbeknownst to the players, she's actually a young white dragon. And her father, the older white dragon, lives in a cave underneath this place. And so what she does is she eyes up all the goods that adventurers get out of the Wizard's Keep. And if it looks good and she can't buy them from them, then she just tells her dad. And so as the players are trekking away, this white dragon comes like bursting out of the snow to wipe them out to get like specific trinkets.
Now I'm sad because you have told me the story before. I thought this was a new story, but
Aw.
I've heard it already. But it's okay. It's still a good story.
It was good. It was fun.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The every shopkeeper is a monster actually brings me to Rifts, where there are places in the Rifts campaign setting that where every shopkeeper is. There's a book called The Splin-Dimensional Market, which is basically here are all these horrible monsters and the places where they want to sell you things. So, including a evil demon version of Uber. So,
Rifts is great. Rifts is nutty.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So, what happens when there's no supporting mechanics?
Well, when there is none,
Yeah.
then one should try to put some stuff in there. And you hinted at one of these in the
Airy
previous
Peaks
segment.
example?
Yeah. So why don't you talk about it?
Is that we talking about the scarcity thing at the Airy Peaks?
Scarcity is a thing, right? Like scarcity is not a thing that a lot of games address. There's just this kind of general assumption that equipment is, if it's on the list, it's ubiquitous, right? Whether I'm in the capital or I'm out on the frontier. But as it turns out, it's more interesting if that's not the case.
It's true.
So what can we do with scarcity?
Well, I like to. This is a little bit of work on the game master's part, and I do this stuff. There's only so many of certain items, and then I rotate that stuff around. And sometimes I'll make rolls to let it be emergent, or sometimes I'll just make choices about it. And sometimes I'll make it up on the fly if I have to. But there's always going to be something that's scarce and something that's flush and something that is, and then everything else is sort of like there, but you can't have everything that you want.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think that's really good. And maybe ask you to kind of break that down a little, because I like the idea that especially the further out you are, right, from any of the core worlds, the main cities or whatever.
Or the poorer a location is.
Yeah, the poorer, right. Now, third edition, we talked about this, I think, over dinner. Third edition addressed this a little with, like, exactly how many gold pieces worth of magic items a town, city, or whatever could support before. Essentially, that was, like, so much that, like, it clobbered the economy of the town. But even simpler items, scarcity can be more interesting.
I think, like, the Airy Peaks had healing potions. Like, there was never enough healing potions that you folks wanted to buy.
Right. Plus, we also did not have a dedicated cleric.
That's true.
So healing potions was a primary method for us to recover.
That, and also poultices and herbs. They were not around all the time.
Right. In fact, healing potions got so well. So here
comes a good story.
Yeah. Here's a way.
I know he's telling this story right
Here's
now.
a way to turn scarcity into actual plot material. So one day we went adventuring in the peaks, and we went to go get some healing potions, and the guy who ran the place was like, "My caravan got hijacked. I don't have any potions." And we were like, "Okay, we need those potions, so we'll go find out who hijacked your caravan." And as it turned out, it was these crazy ass orcs. And as I recall, I got so desperate at one point, I drank a busted potion of healing that had glass in it.
He did.
Yep.
And I got like so many hit points back minus 1d6 because of the glass.
It was, and Corin was pooping glass.
Yes, that was
painful.
That was not. I was desperate, but as I recall, this orc on a what the hell was it? Boar was crushing the shit out of us.
That was a good sequence. You guys went over a cliff.
I took him over a cliff.
Yeah,
right?
but you managed to stay on like barely hanging onto the cliff where he fell to his death.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Corin basically was, ride it like you broke it kind of thing. But yeah.
Should have been dead like 4 times.
But that was like, so there's a case where scarcity became so important that we were like, we'll help you fix that problem, because we're done for adventuring if we can't get our hands on some.
It's true.
On some potions. And even then, we were only able to bring back so many. So for another story cycle or so, we were kind of low on healing potions. It was not, it was not easy.
It was fun.
It was fun though.
Yeah.
And scarcity was cool, right? Scarcity, people think they're not going to, like, players think they're not going to like scarcity in games, but scarcity brings out creativity.
It really does.
It's that confined. It's that confined.
What can I do with these things that I
Yes.
have? I mean, I'm doing it in Novex Castle now. I need to work it up a little bit more to actually make it a real mechanic. Where the shop and Novex Castle is two gentlemen who are lovers who are they have a wagon, and sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. And when they come back, their wagon's got different stuff in it.
Yeah.
And some of it's like just like a brass candelabra or just random junk, right? But some of it's like armor or like potions or things like that, or like a weapon, like a rusted blade or things like
Sure.
that. But as time goes on, like that can get upgraded and they can have a more stable shop if you want that place as like players to do that. But that is part of that scarcity thing. Like I can't wait to have a deck of cards. It's like, well, here's all the junk, and just lay out the cards.
Some Dead Sea Tupperware.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you gonna do with that Dead Sea Tupperware?
This hookah will not break. It broke.
It broke. oh man! Thank you, Aladdin. Good reference.
I also think that scarcity can help when there are mechanics that aren't great. I always go back to I ran some D20 Modern for a while, and that was the single worst shopping mechanic I've ever
Oh
seen.
God, the currency mechanic.
Oh, that was terrible.
Oh,
It was
Can't
so
even talk
broken.
about it.
We don't want
so
you to
bad.
count money, but instead, we'll give you this really crazy abstract rule system.
If there's
that's-
any
oh,
rule that people drove like they stole it, it was literally that.
I threw that thing out.
Yeah, yeah.
It was even worse because I was playing a heist game. How much money did we steal?
+1.
This many.
I was like, "Fuck it, you stole $100,000.
Yeah.
You have $100,000. Buy shit."
Yeah,
I mean, it was easy because it was D20 Modern. How much does that cost in real life? Buy that.
yeah.
But yes, that that mechanic was rough.
That was terrible.
But then you say, you know what? They don't have 100 cannons that you can obviously afford. So,
In Hydro Hackers, I have a move. The idea is that there's no such thing as no such thing. We don't worry about transactions like buying coffee, paying your rent, or whatever, as long as you have one macro unit of currency. But if you spend your macro unit of currency, which happens often, then there's a move when you go to spend any money, and you can wind up not being able to make that move again during the session, or not being able on a 6-, you can't make that move again until you get a unit of macro currency
Because you're broke.
because you're tapped out completely.
That's not bad at all. I liked it a lot.
Right. So it basically says like as long as you got a unit of macro currency, then we don't have to worry about small things. Big things cost macro currency anyway, so you would be spending it with that. Once that's gone, now you have to pay attention to it.
I really like that a lot. That feels like I'm saying this jokingly, but it feels like my 2017. Like when funds ran out, I was like, oh, I really want a coffee, but
But do I really need a coffee?
Yeah.
It's. Do I really want to make this roll?
yeah.
Yeah, I play that game most days.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So-
That's
a little-
okay.
little
Yeah.
joke.
So I think scarcity is a good one. Haggling would be another mechanic.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like allow some flexibility in price if people are willing to make some head-to-head rolls.
Yep. I think that's a really fun thing to do.
If
That can-
anybody argues with you, just play the scene from Life of Brian.
Yes. I would say don't do this for the smallest of items.
No. Do
But
this
for your
major purchases.
major purchases or even your middle purchases, like a suit of armor, worth haggling a little over.
Is there anything else from when you don't have the supporting mechanics?
You know what I would say is another one you could do? Find it. Just because it's on the list, like go gather some information. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it might, you may not be able to get the thing you want
Yeah.
just by like saying it, it exists. Like
That's a
getting yourself an arms dealer is not as simple as being like, I want an arms dealer.
correct. That's where I was actually going. Like, depending on how readily available the item is in your setting, is how you should play that out. So you'll have to like use some logic. So like, if you want to go buy an AK-47 and you're playing in a modern game, you're probably not, unless you're in Texas or down south somewhere, I guess.
Well, you just go to a gun show.
Yeah.
Then you buy whatever you want at a gun show.
But if
No,
you're
I'm kidding.
if you're in the
not
Northeast and you're trying to pick up one of those, it's going to be different, right?
Yes. If you're in a cyberpunk game and you're the hacker, like your stuff isn't readily available, like extra programs or parts for your deck or
Especially
something.
some illegal programs.
Yeah, like you're gonna have to go like, all right, to quote, so for my neuromancer friends, you have to go to the Fin.
Uh huh.
Like that's you got to go to the Fin, and the Fin is an adventure unto himself.
Yes. Yes. Ooh. All right. Let's move to plot advancement because I think that's a good one.
Right. I was gonna. So I said I had a movie that I think captured shopping as a decent plot advancement device.
Okay.
Ocean's 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ocean's 11 does a great job of showing ways that you can make those scenes interesting. One of my favorite scenes in Ocean's 11, and it's just this quirky little scene, is when Bernie Mac is buying the vans.
Yeah.
And it's just such a. I'm sure they just let him improvise. It's such a weird little scene as he's negotiating the price of the vans. But it amuses me to no end. I don't know if you remember the scene or not.
I don't offhand. I can't think of it.
He's buying the cars, and he's talking. They're shaking hands, and he's talking. Bernie Mac starts talking to the guy about how soft his hands are, and how he wanted to lotion his hands, but it interferes with his social agenda, and like it's just this like really weird like little thing. But eventually, he negotiates the guy down. Like, but it's one of these things. Like a good chunk of that movie is prep.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have a plan, and then you have to assemble all the pieces for the plan, and they're not necessarily readily available.
Right. And so a shopping trip is a part of prep, but the thing to do to make it interesting is like, and this is very, very close to what we say about making combats interesting, is put a little drama or comedy into those scenes.
Well, can we talk about that as an idea for a game at the moment? Because we're talking about heist now, a heist type game.
You know I love heist games.
Half of heist is like you have to have a plan, but then you have to prep.
Yes.
You have to get the stuff to put your plan together. Like you'll need items or whatever you need to put your plan into motion. Now, there's always going to be an ideal item that you need, but usually these heists and whatnot are like timed in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Like you only have X amount of time to do the thing that you want. So now we're playing this shopping game where you're trying to acquire things, but you're time stressed, and maybe you can't always get the perfect thing that you want, so you have to get the lesser thing, which will maybe cost you lesser money, but maybe an inferior thing in your heist, it might cause more complications than it's worth.
So I love this because as I'm just riffing off you as we're talking about this, you know my love for that idea for my 7 days game. So this is a thing that we don't often. This is a thing that's almost never mechanized in a game. Is how much time does this kind of legwork take? Mm-hmm. Right, like what you're talking about is time is a scarcity.
Yeah,
and what we don't have good things for is like. We know how much it costs to buy an AK-47, but we don't know how long it takes to buy an AK-47.
Yeah, but we're starting to get better mechanics for stuff like that anyway. In D&D, we have downtime days. In Blades in the Dark, you have in the free play. There's the
you can use your turn to, but you can so in free play you could go acquire an item, but in downtime you can also acquire an item, and because those don't operate on time constraints. Those are both usually pretty open. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is there's 7 days before the fight, right? Like this is Ocean's 11, right? Like there's X number of days before the boxing fight.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I think it was like 2 weeks or something. And each one of the things that you want to buy and set up uses a certain block of time. Mm-hmm. And only so many people can do work on them. Sadly, this turns out to actually be my day job. Right? Like there's only so much money we can buy and only so much time.
Where's the Gantt chart for this?
Yeah, now that's actually what the too far version of this becomes is it becomes a Gantt chart. So there has to be a better way to abstract.
But that's every engine building game, right? And then you just need the randomizer that fits into there, which is like the die roll.
Yeah.
So like you're like, I'm gonna allocate my resources this way, play out the scene, roll the dice, see how successful and how long it takes me or what the cost is for it.
I mean, I would abstract this to a clock and simply make like a move that says like, okay, roll to acquire this thing. And like on a 6-, I'm ticking this clock twice as in you're running out of time. On a 7 to 9, I'm ticking it once. You can get the item, but it's not as good.
I'm glad we just said the same thing.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm wondering. I haven't played a lot of heist games. Is there a heist game where you're playing through the heist and then there comes a moment where you need specific resources, and you flash back to the
Yep.
role play through.
Blades in the Dark does that.
Does it? Okay.
Blades in the Dark, Leverage,
Yep.
and to some
was
extent,
thinking Leverage would do it.
to some extent, Knights Black Agents.
Okay.
Because the preparedness,
Preparedness is that too.
the preparedness check handles a lot of that, and the preparedness check, again, because it's not a shopping thing. Because the preparedness check simply says, "Of course, I have a rocket launcher in the trunk.
Sure, yeah,
I
absolutely.
assumed that we would need one for this op."
I am prepared for every contingency.
But I also like the idea. Somebody had mentioned turning those into flashbacks. Like
Yeah.
at the moment you make that spend, like let's drop into a flashback about why this piece of equipment is actually interesting.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
Like that's neat.
That's
Yeah.
more fun from a role playing perspective than just going, oh yeah, so of course I have this thing because I have preparedness. Check,
Yeah, like tell me
role
how,
play it out.
Tell me how you got this rocket launcher.
I'm with you. I'm with you all, but I really love that story about how I spent 8 preparedness, pulled out my rocket launcher, and shot the helicopter.
Oh, that
Yeah.
example.
Yeah,
That
that's a
example of
great
Knights
one.
Black Agents is amazing.
Yeah, like I mean,
Well, and
I
combined
would-
it with their MOS.
yes, I would and combined with RMOS. I would say what you're all saying is perfectly great. Like I like that stuff too for that storytelling flavor, but I don't need that necessarily with that mechanic because of how just cool it is and for
Yes.
the next thing that
Yes.
we're going to talk about, which is speed.
Now you know what show. I mean, Leverage lives on that flashback mechanic.
Right, not
Like-
necessarily for shopping all the time.
No,
for-
but right, whether it's shopping or whether it's
Gathering
some other
resources.
setup.
yeah, or the setup or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a leverage shtick
Uh-huh.
in that game, and in the game and in the TV show. The TV show does it like beautifully. You see it one way, and then when the bad guy fails, it flashes back, and you see like Nate walking out of the room right before the guy walks in the room or something. Yeah, it's brilliant. Good stuff. I like that.
Are we gonna go to the last thing, which I mentioned already?
Yeah, do it.
Speed.
Speed kills, man.
Speed. So shopping, man. I mean, speed does kill. Speed is great. Speed is also a positive thing in games, and shopping can kill speed.
Yes. So I mean, part of this is on the players, right? Like, so this is hard because if a player knows that they need a particular thing, they can prepare for shopping before the session starts, right? Like, and this is why like I often did my heist games where I didn't do the whole heist in one session. I did the information gathering in one session. Took a stopped. The game stopped. They did the planning in between games, and then we actually played the heist because it gave them that time to pour through lists or look up things or whatever.
Yeah.
It's hard. Well, here's the hard part: speed plus detailed lists are hard.
That's true.
Speed plus abstract lists make speed a lot better.
Or shorter pick lists.
Yeah, like that's why adventuring gear kicks
It
ass.
decreases latency.
It really does decrease latency.
It's tough. Like that's where adventuring gear rocks, right? Like the first time I encountered adventuring gear in Dungeon World, I was like blown away because it was like, okay, I need like you were like, does anyone have a lantern? And it's like, I have adventuring gear. You're like, mark a thing off. You have a lantern. It's like, oh, well, that was cool. Like,
Right?
like yes, like I went shopping, and of course we needed a lantern.
And I've had some people ask me for some pretty outlandish things out of their adventure.
2 ticks.
2 or 3,
Yes.
depending on how outlandish.
Yes.
I think actually the bullseye lantern I counted as 2 because a torch would be 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, abstract gear is helpful. I think it is hard, right? Speed is a real challenge when you have like corporation made shopping and corporation, because again, it was mission based. Shopping corporation was a bear. Now, one of the things that did help, and the publisher did this, and I will give serious kudos to this publisher for doing this, which was on their website. They had a PDF you could download that had an index of all the items, and it referenced what page and what source book. So when you did want to find the 20-watt plasma inverter, you could just go down the list, and it would be like, oh, it's in this book on this page. And it's like, thank you. I also actually, I did actually do this. I took those PDFs apart, and I took all the equipment pages and made a PDF from all the equipment pages so that you didn't have to actually go through books. You could just go into that PDF and go page to page to page. So there are some ways when you have detailed lists to speed things up, but I don't know other ways. Like, can you guys think of some other ways that...
You got anything?
I mean, the only thing I can really think of is focus on the big things that are important. And I think that can help with the spotlight too, is like, okay, well, you're not looking for your +2 sword against, ogre mages or whatever you want.
It's a very specific sword.
So I have a lot of problems with ogre mages.
I love ogre mages.
I mean, I feel like if you have more than one ogre magi, you better be playing in some sort of Karator or Eastern inspired game, or you should get a new monster.
I do love ogre.
Or you should know your GM's not messing around. The three ogre magi appear. What?
Oh, are you sure there weren't 3 hags? Like, no, 3 ogre magi. Do
Three
they function like hags? No, they're 3 ogre magi. Like, why?
They're going to function like ogre magi right now.
In your face.
Yes.
That's a different kind of 3 magi.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Gold, frankincense, and a machine gun.
Yes.
But I think that you can say, okay, well, you've got your cool thing that you wanted. Any other things, look through the lists.
Yes.
Split it up that way if you have to do it during the game.
Yeah, that's good. Spotlight the one big, tell me the one big thing you're getting. And yes, I don't care if you get 100 feet of rope.
Yeah.
Just, we'll handle the purchase of your scroll.
So abstracting speeds things up. Having shorter lists that are created already because certain shops don't have everything, that speeds things up because there's only so much stuff that you can buy. The scarcity thing speeds things up.
Do you have this thing? No. Do you have this thing? No.
Well, here, let me just show you what I have.
Yes.
That speeds things up. I don't know if this speeds things up, but I think it takes the sting away from the lag, the latency, because really we're not talking about speed, we're talking about latency issues. I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So really what we're talking about is not playing the game. So if shopping becomes a mechanic within play that actually is fun to play with,
then it's not really a latency
it's not really a
problem.
latency
Yeah.
or a speed issue.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it is a speed issue, at least you're having a fun beat of play.
Yeah. I think the other thing that would help, and I don't think enough games do this, would be to put a rarity. Like, this item can be found in any town. This item can only be found in larger towns. This item can only be found in cities.
Oh, giving it that extra tag.
Yeah, and then just being able to be like, okay, we're on the podunk edge of the frontier. The only things you can buy are the top of this list.
I've been racking my brain since we started talking about this topic. There is a game that has like a 1 to 5 rating, and I can't, or maybe it's letters. I don't know. So that was a useless point to bring up.
No, but it's not a useless point because it's a good mechanic. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
here's
actually...
here's your scarcity rating system.
Yeah.
I think if you're playing a game where, or a setting where that's important, like that you're really trying to hard contrast the frontier from the core for sci-fi, or whatever, the city from the edge. I think that's actually really
Good. Yeah.
I think that's good
Yeah.
because that that can not just be items, but that could be like, oh, you need that curse removed. Yeah, you can't get that at the temple in this town, right? Like, the temple in this town can just barely bless something. You got to go to the big city if you want that curse removed.
I'm with you, right? Like that is a good way to go about it.
Oh, FFG Star Wars apparently has a scarcity rating.
Yeah. There you go.
Starfinder plays with it a little bit too, but it's level based, and it's your expenditure is kind of based on that, and it kind of gives the game master like, okay, they should be getting about this much money, So my 1d6 laser pistol that I have at first level, by 5th level I'll have a 3d6 one, but I'll have the money to pay for it.
Nice.
Is that everything? I think we're good, right?
I think so.
So those are our suggestions for making shopping less boring. Thank you, Doc, for being here and going through the topic with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next time your players want to go shopping, don't hand wave, but try some of the things that we talked about today.
Yeah, don't do all of them. Like, pick
Just
one.
try some of them.
Right.
Rotate them
Work
around.
them in a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob, what's going on in the chat room for life? Anything for us?
Yeah, Eric Paquette asked, "Is Jingle All the Way a good movie to showcase scarcity and shopping combat?"
That is definitely the movie that's about like get the MacGuffin, right?
I don't know if it's good anything.
I love that movie. That movie is terribly bad. In the
I've
best
never
way
actually
possible.
watched it, so I can't really.
I mean, that movie's so gonzo. It just one ups
really
itself
is.
scene after scene. Like it's just like more and more and more ridiculous as you go along in it.
I'm more amazed that I think they made a Jingle All the Way 2.
They did.
Yeah.
No Arnold or Sinbad
no
in that
Arnold.
one.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the point then?
I know.
I mean, first of all, it's a movie that has Arnold and Sinbad in
Right.
it. Like,
It's worth watching just on that alone.
well, I mean, if you do the remake, you could have done it years ago before The Rock was as big of a star as he is now.
It's true.
But now, like, you can't even get him near something like
No.
that. Like,
He did Jumanji. I think you could get
are
him
you
to do
kidding
a
me? That
Jingle.
actually looks good.
Yeah, it does.
It's getting some good buzz.
Yeah,
too.
I actually
Plus-
kind of want to see Jumanji.
Plus, that cast is pretty great.
Yeah.
It is a good cast.
Karen
I mean-
Gillian. Oof.
Yeah, and then when you Jack Black,
Jack Black playing a
teenage
teenage
girl,
blonde
who's,
girl.
who's-
Yeah.
yes,
I
it's,
mean, and by blonde, I mean they're doing the stereotypical blonde
Yes.
thing. But Jack Black is playing her in the movie. It's
yeah,
hilarious.
it's great. And then Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't actually make fun of that movie because my kids want to go see it, and I'm like, I will take you to go see this movie. Like, this is not a stretch for like I'm not earning any dad points on this one other than I'm taking the kids.
I want to see it too. So
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
What was it? Tony and I took Dante to Power Rangers, and that was also one where I don't feel like I earned enough dad points because it was like
That was so much better than it should have been.
no, Phil, I feel like you earn dad points regardless of if you like the movie or not.
Yeah.
I know, but I think you earn a bonus set of points if you actually like
Torture yourself? No, I don't think that's true.
Listen, you take your kid to Jumanji versus you took your kid to the Emoji Movie.
Now taking your kid to the Emoji Movie just sounds like you're torturing yourself. I feel like you get less
Well, yes,
points
but
for
what
that.
what if your kid is darling and little and adorable and is like, Daddy, I really want to go to this, and you're like, of course I will take you.
Well, sure.
And I will sit for the
Daddy,
hour
I
and
want
a
to see
half-
the talking poop.
Right, and I will sit for an hour and a half and watch my IQ drain out of my head.
I mean,
There's bonus points in that.
I guess for some level of bonus, I feel like if the game is to like do as many awesome things with your kid that you also enjoy, then you've lost points for the Emoji Movie.
Well, I think yes. If that's the criteria for your game is also for you and not
Yeah.
self-sacrificing. See, I think there's a bonus for self-sacrificing. Again, Jumanji movie, not a self-sacrifice.
True.
The Power Ranger movie was more like I told my son, I'm like, listen, I'm going to see the Power Ranger movie.
You wanna
If
go?
If you want to go with me, you can. And if you say no, I'm going to the Power Ranger movie.
Oh man.
So
Oh boy.
Okay, let us
us do
move
the
on.
thing.
Let's mosey.
We should mosey. Oh god. Well, it's the social media depository. Normally, we would talk about 1 to 3 listener responses and things like from the G Plus community and whatnot, but there wasn't a lot of stuff in the G Plus community because of Christmas.
it was Christmas time.
Yeah. So instead,
It's
I
a
went and
time for
found some.
miracles.
I went and found some RPG news. I don't really do the news very often anymore. But I
Oh,
wanted to do some
okay.
news.
Let's.
All right. So for those people from back in the day, I assume you know the Fantasy Trip, right?
Oh yeah.
It was reacquired by Steve Jackson Games. They had lost the license. They hadn't had it for a long time, but Steve Jackson has now rebought the Fantasy Trip, and there will be new
that's-
Fantasy
well-
Trip stuff from Steve Jackson Games.
As soon as Steve Jackson Games puts out Car Wars, I'm interested.
Larry Elmore's Sovereign Stone. That is a series of novels, a trilogy of novels. It is once again returned to our game tables. Applied Vectors Ltd. has acquired the license to bring the series to Savage Worlds in early 2018.
Oh, nice.
I believe it used to be published as it was published at one point as a Cortex game under the Margaret Weiss.
Yeah,
banner.
yeah.
I believe that may be correct.
Oh man, first of all, I mean, I still enjoy me some Savage Worlds.
Yeah. Mhm.
Second of all, man, you know these books are going to be gorgeous because it's just going to be wall to wall Elmore art.
Yeah, pretty much.
Love it.
Vampire the Masquerade has a new logo for the new version. You can all.
It looks very vampire-y.
It looks very vampire.
That's what I'll say about
I will
it.
link in the show notes. People can just check it out.
It's fine. I mean, it looks good. It looks, it's got all
It doesn't look
vampire.
sad and alone.
And now that I've blown
It
through
kinda
those
does.
three, it's now that I've blown through those 3 news stories. Here's the news story that I really want to talk about because I don't think we talked about it yet.
I feel like you set us up.
As you may have seen a while ago, it was casually mentioned that D&D has a new movie coming out.
Uh-huh.
It's coming out. It's got a date now, July 23rd, 2021. So for those who don't know, like in 2013, there was a huge legal fight between Hasbro and Sweet Pea Entertainment. Sweet Pea made those terrible D&D movies.
Oh, I remember.
Like all three of them. Like Book of Vile
There were
Darkness.
3 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will defend Book of Vile Darkness. It was the best of the 3. I thought it was actually fairly decent from a B movie
I
perspective.
thought the second one was the better of the 3. Book of Vile Darkness was pretty vile. The second one was with Damodar for no reason.
Yeah, Damodar being a
and his
lich.
blue
How
lips.
do I know
Yeah.
these names?
Damodar.
I saw the first one. There were dragons in it.
I mean, I
There
like.
was a Wayans brother.
I didn't hate the first one.
I didn't love it.
I mean, Jeremy Irons was chewing the scenery.
So much
Yeah.
scenery.
It wasn't a good movie. I mean, the movie got much worse as soon as the Wayans brother died.
I'm going to throw this out there. There's a framing piece that I've always wanted to shoot, and I've talked to other like director people about it for that movie, but I don't really have any purpose. Where it's the first D&D game for a group, and the game master's girlfriend shows up and gets to play the main character. And if you look at it through that,
then
that
it all
light,
makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Oh, it's the GMPC.
Yeah, there you go.
You can play this character. Wow, what does this 46
Anyways.
mean?
Yeah. Anyways,
Is that a lot? Yeah.
So Sweet Pea Entertainment, for the history of this real quick, owned by Courtney Solomon. Solomon purchased the film rights from TSR, and after many years, they tried to get a production together. Finally, they lined up a studio and they distributed that movie that we're talking about through New Line Cinema, and that was just as Wizards of the Coast purchased TSR. And then there was a lawsuit over who owned the rights that ended in a settlement with Sweet Pea holding on to the rights, but the word was that Solomon had to direct and had to use an early draft of the script due to a previous agreement with the at-time CEO of TSR, Lorraine Williams.
Dun dun dun.
Yep. So in order to hold on to the rights, a new film had to be produced with a theatrical release every 5 years, or the rights would revert to Wizards of the Coast. This is, by the way, from an article on MWorld. Thus, we had 3 total D&D movies: Wrath of the Dragon God, and then the sci-fi original film Dungeons and Dragons: The Book of Vile Darkness. Anyways, in the lawsuit from 2013, Sweet Pea claimed that they made a film every 5 years as required by the license so they could keep the rights, while Hasbro, who had purchased WotC, claimed that the third film did not get a theatrical release, and even if it did, Sweet Pea paid the licensing fees, and it was a television film, not a theatrical film, so therefore the rights reverted. This lawsuit also ended with a settlement in 2015 where Sweet Pea retained the rights and their deal with Warner Bros., but we don't know what happened recently because it seems that WotC has the rights, or Hasbro has the rights for that film again. There hasn't really been a lot said, at least that I could find, about what happened that made everything work out okay. So in some way,
There's only one thing that ever happens. when
Money
it's
was thrown at it.
Money.
I feel like that's probably what happened, but it looks like we don't know for sure, right? We don't. I mean, we can guess.
I don't think Sweet Pea gave it up out of the goodness of their heart.
Or they got legally.
Well, maybe they
run
got legally
around.
clobbered,
Yeah.
but short of that, I'm thinking truckload of money.
I also feel like Hasbro could just say, "Okay, we own you now." Like,
We just bought
just
Sweet Pea
bought you,
Entertainment.
So
Like Tony Stark.
So the script, though, for the new D&D movie is being written by Joe Manganiello.
Did they confirm that?
really?
It looks like that's what's going on.
Because
Mania?
Joe wrote a Dragonlance script.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That Margaret Weiss was very happy with.
Maybe it's not. No. From what I read, it looked like that's the script they were going to be using, or they were leaning towards using, or they were going to be rewriting in some way, shape, or form. So that's the news that I wanted to talk about. Anyways, I would like to talk about some thoughts. What are people's thoughts on a new D&D movie in 2021? Which I have to wait till 2021. Jesus, a mother ever living. Oh,
Well, Hasbro's docket is pretty full right now. They're making a Mask movie, for Christ's sake. Like they're
on.
making everything.
Rock on. It's a flying
I know,
car
I
with no
love
doors.
Mask.
There we go. That's
But it makes sense that they would do something with D&D. Yeah, it's a long wait. I wonder. I don't know.
I think the smart thing to do is you're Hasbro, you acquire the rights and you sell them to Disney.
Yeah.
I mean, you just trust the people who can make shit like Star Wars and Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you going? Like, what is it you think you're gonna do? What's gonna happen is they're either going to figure out something similar to the Marvel magic and make an awesome movie, or they're gonna DC it.
Oh no! I just had a terrible, terrible thought.
What's that?
Hasbro is trying to tie Transformers First Night into the extended Hasbro universe,
Oh my
which
God.
includes ROM and G.I. Joe. And you know what a lot
been
of
doing that in
themes were
IDW.
similar to?
They've been doing that in like those IDW comics.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I mean, first
No,
of all,
they won't do that.
First of
They'll,
all-
they'll leave it alone first. They'll do something by itself.
First of all, who the hell who didn't grow up in the 70s even knows ROM?
I mean,
That's a toy. Like, I remember when ROM came
I
out.
don't even know what that is.
I remember the comic
ROM,
books.
the Space
yeah.
Knight.
No, I don't know.
The comic books lasted way longer than.
The toy was on the shelf for like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's just this silver space dude. Like, I'll show you a picture. When I show you a picture, you'll be like, oh, that's ROM, of course.
I literally reread the entire ROM series this past year, but
Can I tell you what
I'm
one of my
weirdo.
guilty pleasures is, just since we're riffing? One of my guilty pleasures for comic books is Atari Force.
oh, it's so good.
DC Atari Force?
Yes.
So the biggest problem with Dungeons and Dragons is they don't have like established characters. I mean, they do have established characters, but they haven't really thought to use any of them.
Well, and it gets even trickier because depending on how TSR set up their IPs, it's not 100% clear who owns. Like, we don't actually
As
know
far as I
who
know-
owns Dritz.
That I was just about to.
No.
Like, does Salvatore own Dritz, or does WotC own Dritz?
WotC owns them. That's why Salvatore didn't write a Drizzt book for a while because they
Okay.
weren't paying him, and they didn't let anybody else do it. Either.
Because I think
the contract might have been like he's the only one who's allowed to. Write it, but-
if you got to make a D&D movie and you need to make a good one, like, I feel like you got to go Forgotten Realms Dritz.
I feel like that,
I would
too.
totally make the Crystal Shard in some way, shape, or form, but you'd have to rewrite it because see the weird thing about the Crystal Shard is that is not necessarily a Drizzt book. At least it wasn't to begin with. That's a Wolfgar book.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like, I mean, the thing that you want to do, I'm sure, is if you're going to highlight a character, one, you're going to go Dragonlance. That is a great.
Well,
story,
I would
right?
love. I would love a Dragonlance movie. And to be honest, you could do a lot
Yeah.
with
Uh-huh.
Dragonlance.
Uh-huh.
You could do a lot with the first 3 books before you even, get into the second 3, and then after that where it gets like,
God.
progressively weirder.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you do the first 3, then you do the Time of the Twins, and then you do the whatever Dragons of Autumn, whatever the last one is, and then you can just stop after that. You don't need any more.
I mean,
okay?
I'll agree with you that I've actually always liked Dragonlance more than I liked Forgotten Realms. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed.
I don't as a setting to play in, but I do as a
Yeah.
set
Let me
of
ask you a question.
stories.
Did you ever play the Saga version?
Yeah, I owned
Yeah.
it.
I like the Saga version
The
as an
game-
actual.
So those like Dragonlance is not my favorite setting. I'd rather play in Eberron. I'd rather play in Forgotten
well,
Realms.
I would rather play an Ebron, and if they made an Ebron movie, I would lose my
I was
shit.
just about to say that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
would be that would be a feast, a visual feast for the eyes.
Oh my God, Sharn in movie form would be.
But there's no like. Those books are so pulpy that they
Yeah.
read more like Indiana Jones adventures, which I like. Don't get me wrong.
But that would actually work, man. Halflings on fucking T-Rexes, and
Well, that's a very different. So look, man, you make a.
you're running through Zendrix. You're in
not-
Sharn.
I don't know if you're making a movie in Sharn. At least it starts in Sharn, but yeah, you have to redline everything, right? So I guess there would be
Uh-huh.
it would be an Indiana Jones film.
Take
You
the
could-
lightning
you
rail
could-
up the road.
You could totally make an Indiana Jones-esque Ebron movie, and it would be balls out amazing.
It would, but it wouldn't be very D&D.
No,
That's the
no
thing.
D&D
They
is.
wanted to define
I mean, that's the
D&D.
problem. D&D is going to be Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance.
Yeah, and as much as there's a bunch of people out there who are like the Drizzt thing, this, that, and the other thing that people don't like Drizzt. Me personally, like for the visual flair of the sword fighting and
Right.
whatnot, like I want to see Drizzt fight Artemis and Terry on screen.
Absolutely.
That would be freaking amazing.
Yep.
You know what other one I would watch though in a heartbeat? Dark Sun.
Oh, 100%.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, a
Or
Dark Sun.
Planescape.
Well, Planescape would be crazy.
It'd be insane.
Yeah, there it is. Somebody just said it. Eric Paquette. He was like Dark Sun, Planescape. I'm like, yeah, those would
Yep.
be good too.
They're not the most. I mean, well, I can't say Planescape isn't a popular setting. Planescape's a wickedly popular setting.
Also, Planescape's got the Torment video game that has characters associated with it, so
that's
you
true.
could borrow some of that stuff.
Although, you know what you could do? You could do, if you wanted to go full on Marvel, you could do a series of prequel movies, one in Dragonlance and in Forgotten Realms, and
Jesus.
all of them eventually lead to a Planescape movie.
The end of the first Drizzt movie after the credits, he's walking through and Elminster's there. You think you're the only hero in the realms? Of course, played by Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
Elminster Sam.
No, I guess if they did, not that I'm super fond of these characters or these stories, because as much as I like Ed Greenwood and a lot of this, I like the Elminster books that he wrote quite a bit actually, but the
Elminster Sue.
The Knights of Mythdraenor, like they're an adventuring party.
Yes.
They did adventuring things.
Yeah.
I just think if I'm going to do an adventuring party story that's epic and fantasy in scope, it's going to be Dragonlance.
Yeah.
After that, if I'm going to do more of a D&D type thing, it's going to be the companions, which is Brunner and Catti Bree and Tristan and Wolfgar. Like those are the most established D&D characters that exist in the world.
I'll throw one other thing. What about the Circle, Gary and their original characters? Big B and
Mordenkainen.
Tensor and
Tensor.
Yeah, I mean those are. I mean that would be interesting. A
Yeah.
Greyhawk movie.
That'd be
like
interesting.
They own that. They own the rights to that stuff.
Yeah.
so-
Of course, I mean, Dragonlance would be my favorite. I mean, I love the Dragonlance characters. There's good chemistry between the characters, and God, there's enough things you could reach back to. I mean, you have a ton of flashbacks, that you can go through. And
If they really wanted to go that sword and sorcery feel for D&D, like Greyhawk would be the way to go. It's got more of a sword and sorcery feel.
yeah,
Tomb of Horrors movie.
No.
yes. Do not get attached to these characters. Dead. Done.
It's the Rogue One.
No, they got to do D&D movies as in like a shared universe style as you're leveling up. So they got to keep on the Borderlands first.
Oh, and Isle of Dread.
Isle of Dread.
Yep.
Eventually, you're working towards the Against the Giants series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh God, that would
I
actually
said,
be fun.
Somebody, Angela mentioned that there's no female characters. I said Catti Bree. Catti Bree's in there.
No, she was talking
In
about
Greyhawk.
the Greyhawk, the original
Yeah.
Tensor
Oh.
Mordenkainen.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a bunch of
That's
old
a
white
huge-
dudes.
That's a
problem.
huge problem. Yeah.
I mean,
I'd be fine recasting a whole bunch of those wizards.
I want to. I mean, I would love to see. I want it to succeed, right? So I want Dragonlance. I think that would succeed.
Yeah.
I would love an Eberron film because I want to see it.
I would love an Eberron film to watch visually, and I would basically make one of two Eberron films. I would make either the noir detective, right, in Sharn, or I would do the Indiana Jones lightning rail, Sharn airship,
No, man,
Zendrix, the whole nine
You
yards.
just crossed the two over because that's what every Indiana Jones movie is. It's both of those at the same time.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
I mean, because every one of those Indiana Jones flicks, and well, not every one. I don't think Temple of Doom. Well, even Temple of Doom does at the beginning, right? It's got that noir scene at the beginning.
Oh,
kinda,
yeah.
Like, it's all like, who do I trust? Who do I not trust? Indiana Jones has that problem constantly,
Yeah.
which is a very noirish
Yeah.
trope. So,
I mean, I just love Eberron. Like Eberron is my all-time favorite D&D setting. Always it has been since the first time I encountered it. It is the one guaranteed way if you want to coax me into playing D&D is tell me we're playing in Eberron.
oh man, the only way I'm playing Eberron ever again is if I use Dungeon World as the chassis because it just will handle that
Oh my
style
God.
of play.
I'm sorry. Is that a thing we can do
Yeah,
sometime?
absolutely.
I'm in.
will-
I'm in.
Yeah, I will totally play Eberron Sharn. Or I'm
So,
sorry, I will totally play Sharn World.
So I can't. I would love to run it for people and show it on the internet, but I can't because of.
Yes, because that's broadcasting somebody else's.
Yeah, there's only one. There's only one group out there that's allowed to play Eberron online, and that's the Maze Arcana folks. They actually have the rights to do that.
Wow.
WotC. They're the only ones that can do it.
Can other people?
Can you just rename everything?
I mean, I could absolutely.
File the serial numbers off.
We're in the we're
Yeah,
in
we're moving on.
Narn.
Yeah, we're in. I would just make something. other
Narn,
stuff
the
up.
city of floating buildings. Yes.
All right. Well, we can move on. Thank you for indulging me in
No,
talking
it's
about
fine.
D&D.
I-
Yeah, D&D.
All right, Patreon shoutouts. Rob Whitaker, Jared Rasher, John Smith, Nikki Lewandowski, Merrick Blackman, Robert Aducci, Craig Just Craig, Eileen Barnes, who got a broadsword for Christmas. I saw
Did
that.
get a
picture.
broadsword for
Good
Christmas.
job, Brandon, by the way.
Nice job, Brandon.
Stephen Farrell, my roommate, who's around somewhere. Scott Robinson, GM Gerrymander, who's in the chat room. Eric Bonts, the Gator, Sean the Edge Gilgore, and Eric Jeppison. I got
Wow,
my
you almost
names mixed
crossed
up.
a couple
I
of
did.
those,
I
yeah.
did. Thank you so much for being our patrons. We greatly appreciate it.
If you are free Tuesday evenings, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 6:45 p.m. the Queen's time, or you're in the Buffalo area and just want to drop in,
Yeah.
There you go.
come join us live on Twitch, and the rest of you could just show up here.
Apparently, you can have dinner with us beforehand too.
I mean, we could have a live studio audience. We could put a
Yeah,
couple
I mean,
of
we
people
put some
just
people.
off of
If you want to
camera.
come hang out with us,
Right?
be
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay. Well, We'll open that up later. Come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with the other listeners in the ever awesome chat room for life, or just ask us some questions while you're watching the show.
Yeah. And if you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcast from. And take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Threats from Gallifrey, Advantaged Insight, Pandas Talking Games, Cypher Speak with Darcy and Troy, The Gnomecast, the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars, and Hobbs and Friends of the OSR. You can and should also check out some of our brother and sister podcasts, such as Misdirected Mark, Word Scramble.
There we go.
She's a Super Geek, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have completed your full shopping list and are ready to go adventuring, drop us some feedback. You can reach us on the old-fashioned emails. Chris at misdirectedmark.com.
That's me.
Me, Phil at misdirectedmark.com.
That's him.
Or Bob at misdirectedmark.com.
Baldman Logan.
Hit up our Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter at misdirectedmark. I'm at DNA Phil. He's at Robert M. Everson. That's The Light 101 and Doc.
Doc Palindrome.
Doc Palindrome.
Hey, Doc, where else can we catch you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter or on Facebook. That's about it right now.
Okay.
So because my site's down.
And as always, please come to the bazaar of our social media community, our G+.
Our bizarre bazaar.
Our bizarre bazaar.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
Oh, I'm reading a thing. This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.